Baker is a fisherman living on Plymouth Island. He makes extra money selling fish and sometimes takes wealthy clients out to sea, handing them a rod when a fish bites the hook. One day, the hero takes his assistant Duke and another wealthy client with him. The moment arrives when it's time to hand the rod to the client, but Baker isn't going to do that. He's sure that the fish on the hook isn't just any fish, but the tuna he's been chasing for months. The hero, along with his friend, lures the fish toward the boat and, thinking it's already dead, tries to harpoon it. But just at the last moment, the fish escapes and swims away. The client is furious, but Baker is so upset that he doesn't care at all. Now, he doesn't have money to pay Duke, but he still believes he can find a way. He goes to his girlfriend Constance. They have a close relationship, so he often visits her to relax, and she even pays him for the time they spend together. The hero goes to a bar to have a couple of drinks and make notes in his notebook, where he describes every encounter with the tuna. Afterward, he goes to Duke, gives him the money, and asks him to go out to sea with him the next day, just the two of them, no clients. His friend is concerned because things have been going badly lately, and now it's a waste of money on gas trying to catch that tuna. Still, the man agrees. Baker returns home to prepare for the next day, but he can't sleep well, troubled by fragmented dreams of a little boy. He wakes up and heads to the dock. The men set out to sea, but after a whole day, they still don't find what Baker was looking for, so they have to return home empty-handed. The hero is angry, and in a fit of rage, he blames Duke for everything, saying that after his wife's death, he hasn't caught anything. In the evening at the bar, Baker runs into his ex-wife Karen and goes with her to the boat. It turns out that she's still married, and her husband is raising Patrick, Baker's son. But lately, the man has become too cruel and intolerant, so the boy regularly hears her screams and fights behind the door. However, Karen didn't come to Baker to complain about her failed marriage. She believes he can help her. In the past, he fought in Iraq, so he has the right skills. She asks her ex-husband to use his knowledge and kill her husband quietly, without witnesses or fuss, take him out to sea and throw him overboard, making it look like he accidentally fell and was eaten by sharks. Of course, this won't be for free. Karen offers the fisherman a large sum, but the man refuses anyway. The next day, Baker goes to the fishing tackle shop to buy supplies for the upcoming trip, then returns to the boat. Soon, Frank, Karen's husband, arrives, having come a day earlier than expected. The man tries to arrange a fishing trip, but Baker isn't fond of him, so he doesn't want to take him along. However, after a while, Duke brings some news. He managed to find out that Frank withdrew $10,000 to pay for the fishing trip. That's a lot of money considering Baker usually charges only $700 per trip. Realizing that the boat needs repairs and that he could use the money himself, Baker agrees and takes Duke along on the trip. The trio sets out to sea and has deep conversations, during which the hero learns about Frank's morals, or rather the lack of them. It turns out that not only is he a bad person, but also a traitor. Stories about Karen don't bother the hero, but when Patrick is mentioned, Baker barely holds back from unleashing all his rage and anger on him. Meanwhile, the float starts to twitch, meaning it's time to hand the rod to Frank. A small shark bites the bait, and the hero gives the catch to the client. Soon, the man nearly falls overboard, and Baker, instead of rushing to help him, hesitates, thinking about his ex-wife's words. The boat docks, and Karen sees Frank. She realizes her husband is still alive, so she tries to talk to Baker once more. She tells him that it was Patrick's idea to throw Frank overboard, but the hero still refuses to go through with the murder. Meanwhile, Duke begins to suspect what Karen really wants, so he decides to talk to his friend. Despite the denial in Baker's eyes, Duke is sure he has figured it out, so he asks the hero to reconsider and not take a life. Now it's clear that if Baker goes to sea tomorrow without him, he has made the decision to kill. The man returns to the boat at night to think it over one more time. Soon, Karen arrives. She tells the hero that she has never forgotten him. In fact, she still loves him. Baker listens to Karen and eventually gives in, allowing himself to be seduced. In the end, he decides to carry out her request, and the woman leaves. Near his house, the hero meets a man with a suitcase who has been looking for him for a long time, but has always been a few seconds late for their meetings. This time, he manages to catch Baker's attention. The man offers him a modern device for finding fish, and even allows him to use it for free for a few days. Baker is wary of the stranger, but his suspicion turns to curiosity when the man claims to be a rule. Using force, the fisherman learns something strange from him. It turns out that everything around him is a game with its own rules and features. Someone created the entire Plymouth Island, and the main rule of the game is to catch the fish. The search for the tuna had become an obsession, but now everything has changed. If before, no one died on the island, now the creator of the game has somehow changed the rule and Baker is faced with a difficult choice. Of course, everything the stranger said seemed like nonsense to the hero, but when he wakes up in the morning, he starts noticing strange things and inconsistencies. First, he wakes up a few seconds before his alarm, but for some reason he can't get out of bed. Then he finds some maps, but there are no continents or countries, just Plymouth Island. Baker finds all of this strange, so he decides to drive to a secluded spot in a field to talk to Patrick. Karen had told him that the son could somehow hear him, so the man arrives and talks about a memory when he went fishing with his son. Perhaps that's why the boy made him obsessed with the fish. Soon, Constance's son runs up and asks to be taken to work. However, today Baker doesn't want any witnesses, so he refuses the request. The fisherman heads to his boat, where Duke arrives. His friend tells him that today he will go out to sea without Frank. It turns out Duke was so worried about the hero that he even bribed someone to break Frank's arm. Baker is angry about the change in plans, as now he won't be able to help his son. He gets drunk and goes to look at the sea, where he is found by the young man who revealed the truth. However, the fisherman doesn't believe his theory. He thinks he's just been drinking too much rum, which is why he doesn't remember most of his past life. After a few moments, he decides that he must help his son escape from the tyrant stepfather and heads back to the boat. Meanwhile, Karen manages to convince her husband, even with a broken arm, to go fishing. The ex-housemaster planned Frank's murder, but it turns out that Constance's son secretly went with them. Karen wants to kill the boy so he can't tell the police about what's about to happen, but the hero stops her from doing so. Soon, the bait is taken by the very tuna that Baker has been hunting for months. Realizing this is the moment he's been waiting for, the hero decides to hand the rod to Frank. In the end, the fish drags the man into the sea, and Baker screams his son's name. Karen thanks her ex-husband for his help and tells him that she has always loved him. She's sure that one day he will finally be able to see his son. Meanwhile, in reality, the boy who created the game takes a knife and steps outside, where his mother's screams can be heard. When he returns, the game's code disappears from the computer, as the mission has been completed. It turns out he killed his stepfather to save his mother. In the end, the teenager is arrested, and a news report airs about the incident. It turns out that Patrick's father died in Iraq, for which he was posthumously awarded a medal for bravery. At school, they assured that the boy was a genius. But due to the troubled environment he grew up in, the teenager created a virtual world in the form of a video game to help him cope with the violence at home. However, the mother manages to have the charges dropped and brings the boy home. Baker approaches the phone, picks up the receiver, and hears his son's voice. Patrick talks about what happened and says he regrets it. He wants to change the rules of the game to come to him. The hero is happy to hear this news. He hangs up the phone and watches as everything around him begins to change. Then, Patrick runs down the dock and father and son are finally reunited. What do you think of this movie? Write in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and like. See you soon.